Welcome, everyone. I'm Lana Heckman Ayers, and I thank you for joining us for the Poem After Poem Round Robin Reading Series. It's completely unrehearsed and anything can happen. I have chosen three poets randomly who were strangers to one another prior to this, and they are fabulous and all have chapbooks to share with you today. Let me tell you about them. Maggie or Margaret Chula will be reading from Clothes to Go Out In. John Morgan will be reading from the Nancy poems. And Meghan Sterling will be reading from You Are Here to Break Apart. Now, more than ever, we need to focus on how much more alike we are than different. Poetry connects us through all our emotions, enlightens and informs us about situations that are unique to others, but share common emotional experiences, thus clearing pathways for connection and understanding. Poet Gregory Orr writes in his book concerning the book that is the body of the beloved, every poem different, but telling the same story. And I think Orr means the human story, which is what our poets are here to tell you. Margaret Chula grew up on her grandparents' tobacco farm on the banks of the Connecticut River, where she explored 80 acres of woods and meadows. Then later, she traveled the world. She's published 14 prior collections, and her poems have appeared in numerous journals such as Prairie Schooner, Kyoto Journal, and Poet Lore. She has taught poetry and given readings in Poland, Canada, Peru, Japan, and all over. She's also served 5 years as president of the Tonka Society of America and sits on the advisory committee at the Center for Japanese Studies at Portland State University. She lives in Portland, Oregon. John Morgan studied with Robert Lowell at Harvard, where he won the Hatch Prize for Lyric Poetry. At the Iowa Writers Workshop, he was awarded the Academy of American Poets Prize. In 1976, he moved with his family to Fairbanks, Alaska to direct the creative writing program at the University of Alaska. He's published 8 poetry collections and 4 chapbooks, and his poems have appeared in The New Yorker, Poetry, and the Paris Review, and many others. In 2009, he served as the first writer in residence at Denali National Park. These days, he and his wife, Nancy, divide their time between Fairbanks and Bellingham, Washington. Meghan Sterling lives in Gardner, Maine with her family. Her work has appeared in Rhino, the Los Angeles Review, Swim, and many others. She was a Dibner Fellow at the 2020 Black Fly Writers Retreat. Her debut full-length poetry collection, These Few Seeds from Terrapin, was shortlisted for the Eric Hoffer Grand Prize. Her second full-length collection, View from a Borrowed Field, won Lily Poetry Review's Paul Nemzer's Book Prize. Her collection, Sick Poems from the Love Bed, is forthcoming from Harbor Editions in 2026. When she isn't writing poetry, being a mom, or going for walks in the cemetery, she is an artist mentor at Spindleworks Gardner and teaches workshops. So that's a little bit about our poets. Connect with them on their websites to find out more and to get their books. We're going to start with Maggie, and she's going to read our first pair of poems. So please get us started in this wonderful round robin.
Hey, Lana, thank you for introducing us. I see I'm with some very grand poets here. Got to know you a little bit through reading your manuscripts, and I'm sure by the end of this event, we'll all be good friends. So thank you all for coming. And I'm going to begin with Megan's poem, Lien, Lien. There is memory in the way the sky glares its white eyes at the heat of us, in the thunder that creeps behind the swinging doors of the barn, the flag that half-masts limply across air, while we wait in stillness for something to happen. There is memory in the way a mother holds her hands as if the child is still there, weight of an apple, a melon, bag of flour, standing on the porch in all her emptiness, the air heavier, where once the hands were always holding. There is a room, behind a room, where the photographs stare at poplar weights. There is a sunflower seed pecked to shell by the beak of the blackbird. There is a house the family may lose, where the floor rattles its thunder with every step. There's memory buried under the house, left in a box made of barn wood, a medallion nested in the ashes of a beloved dog, where the box is opened just as the wind picks up, blowing the past out to dim the faces of the yarrow with the dead's bright dust. What a gorgeous poem. Um, so much here. The anaphora, there is memory, there is a room, there is a sunflower, there is a house, and then returning to memory at the very end. Beautifully done. It's very effective. It brings us in, reminds us that this is about memory, among other things. Very specific memories, the way a mother holds her hands. This is such a visual poem. And it's a poem also about transience, how things move and change as we move through life, and that everything has a memory, both animate and inanimate things, which she mentioned very clearly and in a very original way. So I'm going to pair this with one of my poems from my book, Clothes to Go Out In. And this whole book is written in the Haibun form, Haibun. Haibun is a Japanese literary form. It's been around for a long time. It was first written by haiku poet Matsuo Basho as a travel journal in 1689. So you see it's been around, and it's also becoming very popular now with mainstream poets, which is great. The hai in Haibun means haiku. Bun means prose. So it's a combination of both of them. And the three elements work together. The prose focuses on a specific memory or incident or scene and using images. So it's very poetic prose. The haiku both links to the prose, what's just been said, and moves away, it shifts away from the narrative to create an unexpected resonance or surprise. And the title comes last. Some people write the title first. I don't think most of us write our poems titles first. And in this case, it's important to wait and see what happens, particularly in the haiku. So the title comes last. Well, serendipitously, the title of my poem has memory in it as well. So this is The Memory of Bone. It begins with a haiku, a turn of wing, a flash of red, the rabbit's death. Predators feast on the last remnants of flesh. Vultures dip and soar with scraps in their beaks. A wolf licks blood, staining his tongue red. Snow crystals dilute the flavor until all that remains is the memory of bone. In Tibet, people cut up corpses and offer them to the birds. In this harsh climate, wood cannot be wasted to cremate the dead, and the ground is often too frozen for burial. Tibetans are a practical people and believe that vultures will carry the souls of their beloved to heaven. And the bones, what happens to the bones? I took a bone once from a sky burial site outside of Lhasa. A poet friend who collected stones from all over the world asked me to bring her one from Tibet. For 1 month, I traveled to monasteries and villages, filling my pockets, then emptying them, searching for the perfect stone. Wouldn't a bone be better than a stone? The nightmares. Wouldn't a bone be better than a stone? The nightmares. We were leaving Lhasa the following day, so I asked a Canadian couple to return the bone to the burial rock at Sera Monastery. Before boarding the bus, John bent over and picked up an ordinary pebble next to the Jokang temple. Here, he said, give this one to Edith. And I did. Okay, memory. This one begins with death in nature, in the natural world, and it moves to what remains of the dead that were left out on the burial rocks, the death of humans. So there's that movement. There's also that movement in the first haiku from the rabbit's death, and then the bone that is taken. And once again, like Megan's poem, the bone holds memory. It holds memory of the person, and which is why I had nightmares. I mean, I sensed the life still in that bone. So it went from flesh in the beginning to the bone, and then into the stone. That was actually the perfect thing to give her. So this is also about looking for perfection and finding it in an ordinary stone that my husband thankfully gave to me. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. Wonderful start. Next, with a pair of poems that he has selected is John Morgan. Please remember to unmute, John.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Lana, for setting this up. I'm going to start with a poem by Maggie. It describes a painting in a Berlin museum, and it's a Haibun, so there are poems mixed in with prose paragraphs. Fountain of Youth, Dahlem Museum, Berlin. From the left of the painting, old women are wheelbarrowed by stalwart lads, then lifted onto their backs and carried to the pool, where they will be transformed from spindly crones to beguiling maidens. They are gently disrobed, their rags left in a heap, and lifted down into the pool. The fountain of youth, with Eros and Venus carved on the stem, bubbles forth from the center of Cranach's painting, caressing their bodies. As they pass through the fountain, the elixir turns cadaverous bodies a sensual pink. Middle-aged, I stand before them in black leather boots. I want to see the progression from death to rebirth in slow motion, the uplifting of sagging breasts, the healthy flush of virginal skin, bodies rounded out in the right places, wrinkles disappearing into dimples. Rebirth is not instantaneous. Even in the imagination, there is that time of transition from the stooped figure in the wheelbarrow to prancing maidens, modestly covering their nakedness with tapered fingers. Balding stranger and I move closer to the painting. Passing through the wine-colored curtain like a confessional, the virgins are robed in velvet gowns that hang loosely on supple figures. And further around the circle of rebirth, they join the men who have been transformed into handsome youths by the mere presence of these elegant maidens. Together they dine and drink mead, and while their lives away in perpetual merriment. Museum Cafe. I nurse a Budweiser. It takes some guts to end such a serious poem with a joke, but it works for me. I love the detail in the poem, and it made me go on the web and look at the painting, which is marvelous, and fits very well with the description. I'm going to read from the Nancy poems. The Nancy poems covers a 60-year relationship. And the first poem I'm going to read was actually written 60 years ago. I don't know if that's considered cheating, but Nancy was, we were engaged. Nancy was a sophomore at Simmons College in Boston, and she would send me postcards from the Gardner Museum of paintings, and that's the connection with Maggie's poem. And I would send her love letters describing the paintings on the postcards. Postcard from Nancy. As companion to the Crivelli of Vermeer, with your sad hand full of worries on the reverse. This too from the Gardner. A young Dutch lady performs at the Virginal. A gallant gentleman, his back to us, lends one ear to the music, while his other attends a blue-dressed matron's account. Inevitably the checkerboard floor, and in the left foreground a bass viol has been laid down next to a draped desk. Is he a soldier? Beside the quill and parchment, could it be that those are coins? Why, in such a domestic scene, does Caravaggio's prostitute laugh on the wall above the music? This painting, filled with lightly arrested motions, may offer us repose, in hope that, not in despite of the world, our music, when I escort your viola, will hold us counterpoised. My diamond for his guilders? No, no brokers, Nancy. In this age of war and purchased love, mine's a free answer. The painting described in that poem is called The Concert. And many years after I wrote the poem, it was stolen from the Gardner Museum in Boston. There is a $10 million reward for information leading to its recovery. So you should read the poem over so you have a good picture in your mind of what the painting is like. And if you happen to see it, let them know. Thanks.
Thank you, John. That was wonderful. And we have Megan up next.
Hi there. It's so lovely to be here with you all and to be doing this. This is my favorite way to do a poetry reading, is to pair poems and do round robins. For the first poem I chose John Morgan's poem, Mount Rusty Cars. Mount Rusty Cars, Tanana Lakes, Fairbanks, Alaska. The orange metal of abandoned axles, crumpled hoods, radiators, fenders, and parts unknown, like some cubist apocalypse after a war. Cars totaled on bourbon rollovers at 3 a.m., stock cars run off the track, pickups sliding on icy pavements into a tree, or the bloody upshot of a road crossing moose, all roped off and piled in a hillock, rust orange and brown, on which a swallowtail lazes, taking in sun, and where a sign incised in birch declares with a wink, Mount Rusty Cars. Just as we hear a fisherman shout, "Oh shit!" for the big one that slipped his hook. Our last time here, Ben spotted an eagle perched at the top of a spruce. Now he's moved on into his grown-up life. And like the couple we were in our early years, we tread a path of our own. This morning's walk meanders down Chickadee Lane, taking our time and listening to trills, a yellow rumped warbler. And is that a hermit thrush? Your cracked pelvis mended, my prostate tumor tamed, yet they forewarn, like the riff you performed the other day in a minor key, a requiem without divinity. Last week, a small plane went down in the hills, killing the pilot, the father of a friend, aged 81. You say, I don't even plan to be driving a car by then. The whole of life comes crashing to an end, but as the horizon angles in, precipitous, we cradle moments like these as sunlight sparks through aspen and birch, like holding a newborn granddaughter in your arms, smelling her waxy scalp and kissing her sleepy eyes. Such a beautiful poem, so rich, and I love the way it moves. I love how it starts with all the rusty detritus and then moves to that beautiful, hopeful end where we're like seeing kind of death paralleled with life and of this, beautiful granddaughter. I love the end on that lovely, hopeful note. Um, and paired it with one of my poems, it was a very straightforward kind of pairing because, of course, when I'm reading that poem, there's all these broken, rusty cars, and I'm like, the collection that I wrote, You Are Here to Break Apart, is about this place in Tennessee, which is where my mother's family is from. And it's a place that used to be all farmland that, of course, is changing. The farms are getting smaller and disappearing, and the generations of people are passing, and no one's really coming to replace them. So there's a lot of wreck and ruin and memories and just a lot layered there. And so I chose a poem that it starts off similarly in some ways, in that there are images. Let me see if I can get there. All right. So the name of this poem is Tim's Ford Dam. And Tim's Ford used to be all a valley full of farms. And the Tennessee Valley Authority decided to turn it into a recreational lake. And so this whole valley was then flooded by a local river. So this poem's about that. Tim's Ford Dam. Trust the light that comes over the eastern hill, dim as an echo, shivering the lake behind the cedar trees with its pontoon boats, its solitude and fishermen. Remember the houses under the surface, buried in water these 60 years. Once, as you swam, the light filtered gold into green water. You saw a trout swimming an illuminated path. You saw how beautiful detritus could be, A truck 10 feet deep, now a bed for the fish, the broken windows, a rusted archway to dart beneath. Soda cans glinting like jewels in the reeds. The center of tires along the banks filling with ferns. Trust that the light knows what you need to see. Cemetery half hidden in weeds as the sun rose like a duck off the water's smooth belly. Once the name of a relative etched into forgotten stone. Once an old foundation, a mirror intact and staring up through trees. Once your own hands. Trust that beneath your skin you are more than what they make you out to be, all curls and bony legs, all stumbling mouth and hands, not good for much. That in the light all will become clear, gold shining under the rims of closed eyes, gold shining around a halo of impossible hair, that the light will illuminate what it is that you are. So the rusty cars. Thank you.
Beautiful, Megan. Just beautiful. Well, we're back to Maggie for our second pair of poems.
Okay, round two. That was a lot of fun. It was great to hear these poems read because I had read them on the page and I had actually read them aloud myself, but to hear them read in your own voices was wonderful. Okay, I'm going to start with one of mine this time, and it's called Mud Dreams. I come across, and of course this is a dream. You'll figure that out anyway. Mud Dreams. I come upon a pond full of corpses. All I can see are heads floating, stuck in the thick mud. Their faces are blackened with sludge, yet their expressions are visible. Pain, acceptance, fear, anger, and sadness. It's like a Hieronymus Bosch painting. I'm standing behind a man who is built like Paul Bunyan, but dressed in the armor of a warrior. I'm in his shadow, and he doesn't see me. Other people approach, but flee once they see what's in the pond. After they disappear, the warrior gives a signal, and slowly, one by one, the faces begin to move. Arms grope through mud, feet stand. The corpses emerge from the pond like a black army. They will kill me as soon as they see me, the outsider, the only other clean person besides their commander. Do I jump into the pond and cover myself with mud? Or do I stay clean and be killed? The leader senses someone behind him and turns around. From mud, the White Lotus and I turn toward morning. From mud, the White Lotus and I turn toward morning. Wow, I didn't realize this, but I seem to have a lot of corpses and death poems so far. We're going to lighten up a little bit as we move forward. But I chose this because I really liked a poem that I paired it with. So I chose it on the basis of John's poem, actually. Mud, mud, mud. I was always afraid of mud. I hated it. I thought that, like this dream, I would be sucked under and die in the mud, sucking up my shoes, sucking up my body. The smell of it also I didn't like. It smelled like something dying. And then I realized, I have to say, not that long ago, is that mud was just made up of earth and water. And once I realized that, earth and water, then, well, it's an element. So this poem is It's about a lot of things, but I mean, I'm in his shadow. That's very Jungian, my warrior side, perhaps. And it's really about a dilemma. Do I blend in? Do I suffer, or just do I suffer for being different and perhaps be killed for it, the outsider? So it's very much an outsider poem, and it moves from that fear and danger to Buddhism, because the white lotus is a Buddhist symbol of purity and rebirth. So that's the shift away. So we are left in a positive place. Okay, John's poem, Spring Afternoon. And, like Megan's poem, they're the same words in John's poem, foot soldiers in soft mud. I mean, what wonderful serendipity comes up with this, because the poems on first reading seem very different. And yet there's the connection, the foot soldiers in soft mud, spring afternoon. We have fallen on the mattress like soldiers in soft mud, the enemy making off with our boots and automatics. Bright butterflies grow from the head of my wife, and my right hand holds 3 caterpillars as we lie now in a forest. The sun is silent, like the silence surrounding the alarm clock. Light-winged insects fly up to a white ring in the top leaves. Their green shadows spatter through ferns and on our faces. But the war returns like daybreak. Tanks move in, throwing flames, and we retreat into trees. My wife, as a tree, her lower branches caught by fire, buds explode into dogwood, cherry blossom. Then bells begin to sound. We run toward a schoolhouse at the wood's edge. Elsewhere, men race for air raid shelters. We dive into foxholes. We duck behind mushrooms. They are shooting back. Kiss me. My skin is burning, burning. Wow. That last line. Like mine, it begins with soldiers in soft mud, all these images of war. This whole poem to me was very surreal, very dreamlike. So that's the other link to Mud Dreams. And yet the focus is on the couple throughout, even though there's all this war and terror going on around them. This idyllic scene of the couple turns to war. The wife becomes a tree, and that's very much like the lotus that emerges from the mud in my poem. Beauty comes from all of this. And, I finished reading that and I thought, well, I think I know what this is about. And even if it's a dream, it still makes sense to me. But then when I saw Kiss Me, my skin is burning, I thought, oh my God, is this about sex? Is this about sex in the afternoon? Did I totally miss it? Or is that wound into the poem as well? So I hope, John, you let us know at the end. Thanks.
Thank you, Maggie. What I always love is that we bring ourselves to the poems and all of our idiosyncrasies, no matter what the poet may have been thinking at the time. Oh, John, I invite you to read your pair now.
I can say that that was written during the Vietnam War, and there was a slogan going around, "Make love, not war," and that's probably the basis behind the poem. But I liked what you said about it too. I'm going to read a poem by Megan. It's Self-Portrait on Hike with Father and Cicadas. There are birds where there should be bells, scree where there should be sky, the song of cicadas, alarm. And I was all elbows and salt, wet from wandering in the creek, sodden as the farm fields were at the edges. Remember my heels plunging the mud. Remember my voice before it began to shake. There were bones where there should be flesh, flesh where there should be air. I never quite fit with the starlings, more sparrow, more wren, more bird than bell, the mirror said. My father in silent lead, his binoculars around his neck like a noose. How I stumbled, how I fell, how I followed him anywhere, wading across the creek, the scuttling of the snakes in the grass, the cicadas in the reeds, cicadas in synchronized weeping, indignant as we carved our way across their creek waist deep. My bird legs, my mouth flushed with silt, 3 feet beneath green water, skirted with bugs in their shivering circles, graceful as figure skaters. The wall of brush, my father, our guide across murk in its ceiling of scrub. Emerging onto a field with its blanket of stones, remember the catbird chorus, miles from any church, miles from the kitchen, with its double bowl sink, from women and their impatient, unnameable want. The glare that day was from the sun, its glowering red, its preferable heat. A childhood poem being led on a hike that's seems a little too much, but she manages to keep up. Lovely imagery, lovely details. I'm going to read another hike poem. This will be the third, kind of, along with Mount Rusty Cars. This is called An Easy Day Hike, Mount Rainier. Easy should be kind of in quotes. And it's about my family, for Nancy, Jeff, and Ben. It includes the fact that Ben has epilepsy, and when he was in high school had a serious encounter with a wall. An Easy Day Hike, Mount Rainier. Bright mushroom clouds of yellow lilies flame at Eunice Lake, where under jutting peaks we snack and muse on Jeff, our older son, who studies poetry, the climbing art that twines the word with time. Then note fresh deer tracks in the mud as switchbacks steepen into blueberries. The lookout tower's locked, but we can see through glass a gas stove, bunks, a logbook, 1986 to 93. As drizzle comes, we linger, hoping that the mountains will decloud, and talk about Ben's seizures, never tamed. A recent one that spun him down the hall whirled him into a concrete wall. The school nurse found him on the floor, knocked cold. I got the call, and in her office, blood dribbled from his nose. Beside his eye, a crimson bruise, one tooth a vicious fang, one broken straight across. He sat and hardly moved. The razor ridge at Tolmie Peak we skip, and so descend through old growth deliquescing under rain. At Eunice Lake again, the deer himself stares back across his shoulder at our stairs. Later, Ben's dentist sealed the pulp, squeezed plastic from a tube to patch the cracked stalactites in his mouth. Headache gone, he took it patiently, while black light hardened plastic into tooth or almost tooth. As we approach the trailhead, sun breaks through. A rainbow lies on Mowich Lake. It floats beneath our feet. A sign, perhaps, though who believes in signs? The world is flux, each day a setting forth. Our trip's a cache of weathers like the sky. 6 hours into this easy hike, wasted and refreshed, we reach the rented sunray, drink our Diet Cokes, and split a peach. Ben is an adult now. He's a musician. He has a graduate degree in performance on the violin. So he's living a successful life, and he's actually on meds that have greatly reduced his seizures.
Thank you so much, John. Those are beautiful. So I'm going to start with one of Maggie's poems. A lot of the connections that I made when I was reading was I'm very image oriented. Um, I mean, I work in a visual arts studio, and just I love color. But if there was an image or something that came over me, and I felt the connection, then that was the poem I chose. This one is quite clear too, so I'll read this one. And this is Maggie's poem Threshold. Whenever I step into a strange room, I'm immediately aware of smells. Garlic, mold, bleach, or the fake floral scent of aerosols. Once I walked out of a job interview because of the chemicals in the carpet. I can smell loneliness in the faded antimacassars on my grandmother's chairs, sickness in the mercurochrome of mother's room. My cousin's house reeks of mothballs from her Goodwill furniture. I used to feel comfortable in libraries with their dusty shelves, but now they smell of sweat and urine. I want to return to the pungent scent of a noble fir Daddy cut down for Christmas, to Aunt Jean's borscht, to the smell of cotton sheets dried on a clothesline. A hummingbird flits from fuchsia to fuchsia, the sweet taste of pink. So lovely. I love all the scents and the just so rich with all of it. I mean, that part of your brain is lights up as you're reading that poem. So I'm going to read um, the poem that I linked with it, which is a poem about my father and the sense of a fir tree. And this poem is called "O Holy." And we sang when winter brought our faces closer to the dark, our ears pressed to the white wood of balsam, cut quick and bowed, and the moon was a glass held to mouths that could no longer taste. And the moon was milk we spilled to watch run to the corners of the room, and the ice-wet stars out of the dark house, and the cold cut to the skin of the earth hard with frost, and the colored lights strung along the kitchen window, spattered with dish soap in a pattern of flowers, and the leaked light along the frozen creek guiding us toward the woodpile to fetch sticks for burning, and the candles lit beneath the damask of the sky, and the fir tree at an angle with icicles trailing off the terminal buds, and the singing in the gravel road, and the hands plunged into pockets fat with feathers, and the rustling of zippers and ripstop above skittering legs, and the sound of my father running, and the sound of my father happy.
Mm.
The fir tree. Thank you.
And That means we move on to our third pairing of poems with Maggie.
Oh, this is so beautiful hearing not only our own poems read in different voices, but all of these poems. We have so much in common. You know, at first sight, we don't realize it, but here we go. Megan, I chose actually Tim Ford's Dam, which I love, but you read it already, and I actually had a backup, so I like both of these poems very much. So here we go. Give us this day. Give us this day. We gather together always. The tea towels wing their way to the table, their reds and blues against a pane of white, all stains and creases, folded beneath hands that ache to shape themselves into prayer. But we don't pray at this table, not to heaven, but sometimes to a God that can harmonize this chorus, sail this day into unspoiled blue. No hunger, no threat, just light and sky and the plum jam hidden beneath the basement step. Meanwhile, the men are hollering for food. The women are cursing them. The way they expect, the way women deliver to them, giving up on themselves. Breakfast like a forest fire, contained in ceramic bowls. The years left like cinders under the table for the dog. The family's chairs creak in a fit like a ghost in the attic. The porridge bubbles over, the broom falls behind the door, the coffee streaks the pot black, and a curse sails over the room like a bird to its branch. Wow, this is so full of images. I mean, it's a prayer, but it's laden with all this heaviness. Uh, we think, give us this day our daily bread, but this is not a prayer. This is what a family is like. Um, the stains and the creases, cinders under the table, the chairs creak, porridge bubbles, the broom falls, the coffee streaks. Wow, this is like all this is going on. All these inanimate things are taking on a life that mirrors the life of this family. I particularly liked let's see which one, Hidden Beneath the Basement Step. So that was the one that triggered my poem, the next poem I'm going to read, which is not about corpses or death or bones. Our Yellow House on Conway Street. Our yellow house on Conway Street is no longer yellow, the color of sunshine, of 5 tow-headed children spinning marbles into a mud hole. Someone has painted it the gray of elephant's breath, of dust kitties, the acrid smoke of daddy's camels. The porch is still there, and the steps I hid beneath in the dirt that smelled of fear as I listened to mother and daddy argue before he left for work in the olive green Plymouth. No sign of us anywhere. No walnut tree or the nuts we hoarded in the pantry for winter. No hydrangeas between leaves to make hamburgers with and sell on the sidewalk. Not even a swing in the backyard. Gnarled tree root cracks open the sidewalk. Pop goes the weasel. Gnarled tree root cracks open the sidewalk. Pop goes the weasel. Some of you are too young to remember that song, but that was a song that my siblings and I played on the record player in the 1950s. Pop goes the weasel. I mean, this is what happens to families, to homes, to our precious memories. And it shows once again how a place can bring up memories. This is full of loss. The house is no longer yellow, gray of elephant's breath, the dust kitties, all these kind of negative images here. And particularly what stopped me actually as I composed this poem is the porch and the steps I hid beneath in the dirt that smelled of fear, that memory of hiding from my family, from my parents arguing. So this works really well, even though it's a different form and kind of it's much shorter poem. I think it works really well with Megan's. Thank you.
Thanks, Maggie.
I'm going to read one of Maggie's. This this is a haibun that I included in my Substack last week, dealing with hybrid poems that include prose passages and short poems, often haikus. The Stick That Strikes. It begins with a haiku by someone, by a Japanese poet. The dragonfly perches on the stick that strikes at him. Koyo. When my siblings and I did something especially bad, Mother would threaten us with the paddle. This instrument of torture was a child's toy of the 1950s, a thin wooden paddle with a small red ball attached to it by an elastic. The goal was to hit the ball with the paddle as many times as you could. Mother's aim was to remove the ball and use the paddle in a not so pleasant way, one or two swats across our bottoms. That particular day was memorable not only because she was spanking David, her favorite, but also because the paddle broke. We could all see that she was upset, not over the paddle breaking, but because she had used so much force on her darling child. 2 days later, David handed her a crude replacement that he had put together down in the cellar, a slab of wood 2 inches thick, with a handle he had taken off one of Daddy's old hammers. I broke it, so I made you another one, he said. Was he innocent or clever, that dragonfly, that young boy? Dead geranium propped up with a forked stick. It's a lovely incident, and I really like the way the boy's voice comes in at the end. He has his say, but then was he innocent or clever? That dragonfly seems to pull it together. I don't have a dragonfly poem, but I do have a butterfly poem, so that's the connection I made. This takes place in Alaska in November, and you have to understand that winter here begins in September, so we're pretty far into winter right now. November surprise, Fairbanks, Alaska. 10 below and ice mist on the river. When, oh, she says, a butterfly, as it comes wobbling from the sunroom, settles on the floor. We offer sugar water in a spoon and watch its sucking tube unroll. It sips, then flutters to the windowsill and folds its scalloped wings against the chill. By noon, bright sun, and full of spunk, it beats against the glass, in love with light. The ground outside, a spanking white, looks welcoming. Its wings, like paisley red and brown, quiver as it paws the pane, embodiment of summer in late fall, cold-blooded thing whose hopes will never be this young again. This happened years ago. Sadly, the butterfly didn't survive the winter, but it's in a plastic bag in our freezer, actually, to this day. Thanks.
That's wonderful. I love these. I love this so much. Um, the next poem I'm going to read is a poem of John's. Um, I love I love poems that weave in solitude. And this poem is The Beach Walk at Port Townsend, Washington. I feel like really captures some a sense of kind of a resonance. The Beach Walk at Port Townsend, Washington. No walk outlasts its day. Back of the beach, logs like bones or pillars, gray from the weather. And there's an actual pillar broken among the trunks. Who threw it down the cliff and why? To be among its brothers? Ferries ply the strait and sailboats set their wings against the blue. Beside me, shards of charcoal on the beach. Another form trees take, glass, the dried out skins of sea anemone. Nature's punning always, loving the twist of a name. Gulls dive bombing mussels onto rocks, crows, a salmon eaten out just skin with vertebrae exposed and head. Everyone's eating something. Even trees eat light. The sand fleas devour with aching tiny bites. Kids in the surf tossing a ball, the world at sport under a sky, no pillars support. I came here to think about poems, which details count. The whole may be luminous, but broken into parts. Which sand grain, which occasion rends the heart? When I phoned home today, you said our 2-year-old had learned to fear his shadow on the road. He stared and wouldn't move. Then he saw yours. Everyone has a shadow, you said, but he insisted, Papa, thinking it was me. Ivy on the cliff and a decorated heart. I love you. I love whoever you are. Last night in a bar, a Frisco woman said she loved my work, then talked about some low things she had done. I left her sitting in a rented car, the wide-eyed look on her face like a child left at home, shadowed my tipsy sleep. Curse me if I felt virtuous. I know those California nights get pretty long. And now I see trees, fish, the swarming sand fleas on the beach. We all are vulnerable. Waves coming up the sand. I thread the narrowing space between water and cliff, using what distance I have from grief to muse, to hum. My vanishing sneaker prints record this lazy afternoon with you alone. Just a breathtaking poem. So many beautiful images and just so gorgeous. And like the internal rhyme, I love the sport and support and just it's the layer upon layer of beautiful things happening in that poem. Um, so I was thinking about that poem and the quality of resonance is really interesting to me. Um, and so I chose a poem to link it with, if I can get there. So my one of my ways of always coping with solitude or diving into solitude was to imagine that I was other things. And so I used to imagine when I was in Tennessee that I was a fox. And so this poem is about what I used to do alone. While the eyes seemed closed in sleep. She was lost in the fescue, the orchard grass, a second skin. imagining she was a fox. Red-tailed, whiskered, wearing the hay like a crown, she went to die in it, to lose herself in the sun behind the silo, to stumble along the maze of corn that led her away from the past into the past, where the corn was sweet off the stalk, where the silo poured an endless spiral of seed to feed her dreaming cattle. The tractors rolling over the hills to the troughs, the ground wet with spill. The cattle nuzzling her hands as she petted their cool noses, as she looked into their flat eyes, soft as the tips of the blue stem. The land murmuring like water. At night, she hid in her den, a quilt domed over her legs, the smell of cattle on her fingers, as she tried to find a fox to love, as if one could heal her, its hair like corn silk, its barking throat, as if a fox could love. What makes a fox, says the field, says the cattle as they settle deep into the byre, is that it only seems to sleep.
Thank you so much. Oh, and that completes round three. Just one more round. Oh my gosh, I wish this could go on forever. All right, will you please start us off on the fourth and final pairing, Maggie?
Trying to find a fox to love. I just love that you imagined yourself as a fox. Well, you are pretty foxy, though.
I would split my time between South Florida and Tennessee, and in Tennessee I pretended I was a fox, and in Florida I pretended I was a mermaid.
Oh, okay. And now what are you?
Ooh, now I'm a mom.
Okay.
I'm just a mom.
Okay. You've gone human.
I'm
Okay.
human. Sometimes I'm a ghost.
Okay. Okay, the last poem that I'm going to read is by John. It's called Her Shame. Mist rolls above the river like a second river, and the piles of snow darken as she drives toward town and sees an old woman dressed in a light vest and no parka, slumped down on the metal railing where the road winds down. Thinking the woman might be lost, maybe senile, she pulls over, opens the window, and says, "Do you need help?" But the person stands. As the person stands, she sees instead that it's a man, short, with shaggy hair and a stubble beard. He comes to the window and says, "I'm looking for a ride into town." In these tough times, it's her rule never to pick up strangers. So she says, "Oh, sorry, I'm not going there just now," and pulls away, confused at how her good intentions went awry. And at the bottom of the hill, shame overtakes her like a massive truck looming in the rearview mirror as night comes on. Wow, that last stanza, that metaphor of shame as a massive truck, he stays on the highway with that poem, looming that prescience of danger, rear view mirror. It's already passed, it's gone, there's nothing that she can do about it. Um, you know, we all have, I think all of us have a discomfort when we see a person in need, people who are suffering. What do we do? I mean, do we give them money? Do we try to talk to them? Do we avoid eye contact? What do we do? It's a decision that really has a lot to do with context where we are. Um, if you got other people around, we're maybe more willing to make some contact. We all have this compassion though for struggling. And this woman, she was concerned about her safety, and that's legitimate, especially at night. She would have picked up the woman, but it wasn't a woman, it was a man, so she felt a threat there, um, which makes perfect sense. Um, but she ends up being confused about her choices. So that's something that I want to think about a little more. When I was in India traveling, there were so many beggars everywhere. Children were maimed so they could beg and bring back money for the man who was in charge of them. So I made a decision finally just to give money to older women, older women, and I would give them clothes and things. And that's the only way I could deal with it. So that poem is very poignant, brings up a lot of questions and memories as well. I'm going to end with a haibun called The Gift. The Gift. Two mismatched shoes, the knees on his pant legs scraped thin, as though he'd been kneeling on the sidewalk. A tear in the left sleeve of his jacket. I watch him help an old woman load sacks of groceries into the trunk of her Corolla. And I make a note to get some dollar bills when I check out of Trader Joe's. Half an hour later, I wheel my cart with 3 bags of groceries and bouquets of iris, daffodils, and Easter lilies sheltered in their plastic bags. He does not follow me. Maybe he only assists the old and infirm. But there he is, just as I reach my car. Can I help you with your groceries? Sure, I say, and finger the dollar bills in my pocket. Trunk or back seat? He lifts each bag gently, leaning them into each other so they won't fall. Where do you want your flowers? He lays them down on the passenger seat, and when I try to return the cart, he says, I'll do it. When I hand him $2, he thanks me. I should have given him 5. Happy Easter, he says, and his eyes tear up. I've just come down from Alaska. My wife divorced me. I'm all alone. I look into his gray eyes. Well, it must feel good to help people out, I say, gesturing to the carts. He looks confused. Then, thank you, thank you. And before I know it, his arms are around me, and just as quickly he turns, picks up his cardboard sign lying face down on the pavement, and walks away. All the way home, the car smells of daffodils and Easter lilies, and in my hair, the smell of him. All the way home, the car smells of daffodils and Easter lilies, and in my hair, the smell of him. So, the gift, whose gift is it? I mean, I only gave him $2. Once again, I felt guilty. I should have given him a lot more. Those flowers cost probably $15. So there's that guilt associated with it. But sometimes we come out with the right thing to say at the right time. I don't know where it comes from, but when it happens, it's true and clear. And when I said to him, it must feel good to help people out. Um, Doing this for people, helping them with their groceries, giving himself a purpose. Um, so he felt useful. This is one of the big gifts that we can give anyone, to feel useful. And his gift to me was realizing that the interaction with somebody I wouldn't normally interact with on such a close scale. I mean, even him hugging me, that contact that we would never imagine with someone we don't know. So that's the poem I wanted to end on, with that spirit of giving.
um, when we realized we weren't going to coordinate what we were reading, but just each make our own selections. We realized that some poems might be read twice, and this is a case. I'm going to read Megan's poem, "Give Us This Day." We gather together always. The tea towels wing their way to the table, the reds and blues against a pane of white, all stains and creases, folded beneath hands that ache to shape themselves into prayer. But we don't pray at this table, not to heaven, but sometimes to a God that can harmonize this chorus, sail this day into unspoiled blue. No hunger, no threat, just light and sky and the plum jam hidden beneath the basement step. Meanwhile, the men are hollering for food, the women are cursing them, the way they expect, the way women deliver to them, giving up on themselves. Breakfast, like a forest fire contained in ceramic bowls, the years left like cinders under the table for the dog. The family's chairs creak like a fit, creak in a fit like a ghost in the attic. The porridge bubbles over. The broom falls behind the door. The coffee streaks the pot black, and the curse sails over the room like a bird to its branch. I really like the action that the poem carries. The men yelling, the women cursing, or is it the other way around? The women are cursing, and it really seems to steamroll. It gathers energy as it moves along, and I think that's great. I'm going to read. This is the last poem in the chapbook, and the connection is it's a family sitting around a table. We're not cursing each other, and it also has butterflies, which I realized. Megan has foxes, and I have butterflies, I guess. And never look back. Two puny butterflies, elfins perhaps, flit through the bushes, one in pursuit like a hot summer romance. So unlike our 2-year one-sided courtship, because you thought I was taken and we were just friends. So the other evening, when our granddaughter asked how we met, you said, in a group of high school friends. But I broke in with my fiercer truth. It was love at first sight. And the folks around the table breathed out, ooh. Now those bugs are in another bush. One hides while the other searches high and low. The past unveils itself when fiery linkages recur. He'll find her again, and off they'll go. The form of that poem it's 14 lines. It has a few rhymes here and there. It's not a true sonnet. It's a cheater's sonnet. That's the form I embody in a number of poems.
John, let's call it a modern sonnet.
A modern
Give yourself
sonnet.
more credit than that.
I've also heard it called the American sonnet, so more
Yeah.
gentler.
You're not cheating. You're doing the work.
Robert Lowell called his 14-liners, which is an accurate description, but I like the cheater sonnet.
It's your sonnet, you call it what you want.
True enough. Yeah, I actually write a cheater sonnet every morning. It's my favorite form. Thank you so much, both of you. These poems have just been exquisite and just wonderful. And thank you all for being here. So for the last two poems, I'm going to start with a poem by Maggie. It's Shape of a Dark Cloud. So it starts with a little haiku by Masoka Shiki, gazing steadfastly at my shadow, the voices of insects. I read today about a woman who took hundreds of photographs of her shadow strolling on the beach next to her lovers, her shadow getting into the shadow of her car, her shadow preceding her into the shopping mall, following her down alleyways. She photographed her shadow for an entire year, documenting every season. There were pictures of her shadow on new grass, in sun-bleached hayfields, against fallen leaves, and trudging across new snow. She varied the time of day so that light shortened or elongated the shape of her shadow. The shadow lost and gained weight according to the bulk she was wearing, though she always stayed the same. And yet she was not the same. It was as though she had created a flat cutout of herself, a dark and mute twin. Two pines bend in the wind, shape of a dark cloud. So, also reminds me of the poem that I read of John's that described your son seeing the shadow and thinking it was you, John. So this poem, it's about a desire to twin with a parent. And then it ends with a shadow. So this poem is called Lineage. Once I begged to be back in your body. I summoned your fingers to my neck, wrapped myself in the curl of your knuckles. Once I was inside the stone of your finger that pointed south to the thicket of poplars and fir. That time we tried to make a home out of scraps of cloth, slats of wood, when even the birds fled the chimney, when even the moths kept away from the wool. When I was a child, I spoke as a fly. I spoke as a seed splits for the approaching bird. Once I wound myself in the web of your mooring, a thread that came undone and couldn't relearn the weave. How I became the auxiliary to your wheel, the brunt of your thumbs down, the weight of your words like a barrow's. Once I learned how to look away from what was coming, loving the shadow that fell. There we go. On that cheerful note.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Oh my goodness. What what an incredibly powerful, wonderful, vibrant, moving reading by all of you. I mean, looking at it from the outside, you pick up Megan's chapbook, oh, Memories of Tennessee and Childhood. You pick up John's book, oh, relationship with a woman for a long time, 60 years. You look you look at Maggie's book, Nature and the Tensions of Man and Nature, the tensions that arise. These three seemingly have nothing in common with each other. Like you wouldn't think, oh, where's the overlap here? My goodness. I just wonder if each of you would say, maybe a sentence about, what it was like for you starting this process. Were you scared? Were you worried? Were you nervous? How did you manage it?
Well, I
I
read
don't
the,
want,
uh,
right? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Maggie.
okay. Yeah, I get to go first because that's my order. Just kidding. Um, yeah, I read these manuscripts fairly recently because I'd been away for a month in Europe. And I read them a couple of times and I thought, what am I going to pair these poems with? As you said, Lana, I didn't, the subjects were so, so different. Our stages of life were so different. And yet, hearing these read by other people, some other poems, I thought I could have paired one of my poems with that poem as well. So you've accomplished this wonderful thing, Lana, of bringing us all together in finding commonality. And I also was really excited to see what poem of mine was going to be chosen. I think we all were. I was a little surprised because these are not necessarily my favorite poems in the book, but hearing John and Megan read the poems and talk about them made me see them in a new light. And I think that's part of this whole process of sharing poems. So thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. Megan or Don, jump in.
Uh,
Go ahead, John. Let's just go in the
I
order.
was nervous.
Our correct order.
It probably shows. But I really was amazed by both Megan and Maggie's books. I was really impressed, and it seemed like they paired well with each other, and then I had trouble finding pairs for my poems because I guess because mine is a kind of narrative of a relationship, but I thought it worked very well. I enjoyed the reading.
Me too. And I really enjoyed pairing them. I do round robins a lot. It's my one of my favorite. I mean, it's if I could choose the style of reading, I always choose a round robin if I have other poets that are cool with doing it that way. And it's very improvised, but for me it's fun to hunt, and usually I'm hunting for like one major image that really jumps out, or just a sense of kind of the emotional weight and a resonance, right? Like the sometimes if the poem leaves me with a kind of a feeling, then I have a poem that I'm like, I have a poem that I think feels like this. And so it's fun. I enjoy putting it together. It's like putting together an outfit or something. Like, how does this go together?
That's a great way to say it. I just think it's wonderful. James Baldwin said, I'm going to read it because I don't have it memorized. You think your pain and your heartbreak are unprecedented in the history of the world, but then you read. It was books that taught me that the things that tormented me most were the very things that connected me with all the people that were alive. And I sincerely believe we're also all connected by our need for and our ability to love and care for others. And I think all of your poems demonstrate that. And I say, if three poets who are complete strangers can find connections in their work to one another, then we all can find out what we have in common with each other, because we do. We're all basically connected. And in closing, I want to thank you again, Maggie Chula, John Morgan, Megan Sterling, for going on this adventure with us today. And thank you to our audience. A poem is only ever truly complete when it has a listener or a reader. Please support our poets by getting copies of their books or getting in touch with them. We have links in the chat. And let's get together again for another round robin reading. We're going to have some more in 2026, and I hope you'll join us. You can contact me through my website if you want to get on the event notification list. But if anyone wants to make a comment before we close or ask a quick question of our poets, feel free to do so now. Otherwise, I will sign us off. Anyone want to make a comment or have a question? No. Looks like we're all pretty shy. Okay.
I'll always make a comment. You know
Oh, all
me,
right.
Lana.
Sandy's gonna make a comment. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
I just thought it was miraculous. I mean, it was just beautiful and stunning. And I had the good fortune of being the guinea pig for the first reading where Lana Dion O'Reilly and I did this. And like you, Megan, I just think it's a completely sexy format. Like, and I mean, I wrote down, like, I take notes when I'm listening. It was like divining rods, round after round after round. And um, what I really heard come through tonight was shadows, shame, insects, and prayer. Like it was just an incredible, incredible constellation. So, not only thank you, Lana, but thank you to the three of you for your vulnerability of coming together and uh, preparing for what I like to say is the unknown and really making it so special. And I would probably pay any of you any amount of money to read one of my poems out loud. Like that's how much I loved hearing you read poems. Oh my gosh. So thank you.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. That was lovely. Thanks.
Yeah.
So I'll close us out for today. Remember, this reading is being recorded, and if you want to check where the recording is going to be, just check my website or check with the poets. It will also be on YouTube on my special channel. And perhaps you have some friends that missed it that shouldn't have missed it. Until next time. May you find poetry everywhere you look, especially in one another's hearts. And may you find hope renewed each and every day. Thank you all for being here. Bye for now.
Okay.
Thank you.